You better strap in tonight. We got a new guest. He's a bit of a doozy. Is there cheating in high school bass fishing? And if so, how much? We're going to break it down tonight. My man right here, we'll introduce you to in a minute. He does some high school fishing, boat captain, so I want to get his perspective on it. Plus, he's just one of my friends that's goofing and run over ducks. So I thought he'd be interesting to talk to on a live stream. So y'all better bear with us. It's going to get a little rough. By the way, cheers, y'all. There it is. What do you think about the music tonight, Wiggins?
Well, it's not Five Finger Death Punch, but it'll work.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's PG-13.
It's 1990 PG-13 Five Finger Death Punch.
Pretty close. Pretty close.
Pretty good description of it. Little motley crew. Yeah. All right, we'll fade that out. We got a few people in here joining us already tonight, man. We sure appreciate it as always. Kyle, do you know anything about what we're supposed to do right now?
Absolutely not.
Do you have any clue about how to do anything on social media or live stream or anything like that?
I can go live on TikTok.
You know how to go? You can go live on
I
TikTok?
can.
I'll be honest
I've got
with
like
you.
9,000 followers.
No way.
I'm a celebrity.
No, there's no way. You have $9,000 on TikTok.
Yeah, it works.
No way.
Yeah, dude, look.
Stand by, folks. This is going to get interesting real quick. Look at here. And there's one video.
Well, I had to delete all the rest.
You had to, that's how you did it. My man had to delete the other videos, okay? Understood. What is going on, folks? Thank you guys so much for joining us as always. Do us a favor as you get in here tonight, man. Go ahead and drop us a comment. Let us know who we're talking to. We will be taking questions. We'll probably be asking questions too. We'll be taking some questions later and answering them live for you guys. Also, share this thing. I don't know how to do it.
I don't either.
He don't know how to do it, but you guys are bound to be smarter than these two idiots. So please do share. That'll help us more than anything else you can do. And oh yeah, hit that thumbs up as always. Let's say some hello and how you doing to the early risers in the chat. We got Tyler Strader, Bustin' Outdoors, Ryan Wilson, MSH822, Chance Lopez, asleep at the reel. The crappie fisherman. That's like you, crappie fisherman. Richard C., Gary Payne, and I'm sure we got some more coming in. Got a couple more coming in. Casey Walls, Fame.
He said I'm kidding, by the way. What did he say up there?
Let's see what Tyler Strader said. I don't know. Gotta love ACDC. Oh. Nathan Hawkins just joined us, man. Thank all of you guys. And we'll kind of meander around this topic before we get started tonight. As you guys are filtering in here, what on earth are we looking at now?
Hold on.
I don't know that I want to see that while I'm trying to concentrate on doing a live stream, Wiggins. I don't think that's,
That's not PG-13.
I know your dad pretty well, and I've known you for a long time now. I've known your dad for a long time. And I know that your dad does tend to watch some of this content that I put out every once in a while. And I saw him the other night at, your kid's in 8th grade, mine's in 7th grade, so we got the junior high football games on Thursday nights. And I saw your dad at our boys' football game. And he's saying something about how he watches and it's hard for him to not, harass me, talk a little trash to me, give me a hard time while I'm doing live. He's like, but I know you're working, so I just, kind of leave it alone. I bet when he sees you next to me, he's going to go, Billy, you're dumber than I thought. I can't believe. So with no further ado.
We've made bad decisions together.
Some that he's witnessed.
Yes.
Luckily, I think most of those were quite a while ago, but,
A lot of years ago, actually.
A lot of years ago.
Ty was just a baby or not even born yet. Ty wasn't even born yet.
Might not have been right at it. I mean, it was early on.
Yet.
He was early on, and that's the kid that's now 12.
Yeah.
So, and the one that
we hadn't made any bad decisions since, guys.
Not a one. Yeah. Anyways, we'll let that go. With no further ado, allow me to introduce the audience at Your Lake Fort Guide to one of my best friends, Mr. Kyle Wiggins, lives here in Van, Texas with me. He's also a boat captain for a couple of youngsters here in Van through THSBA, I believe, the organization you captain through. And you fish the East Texas region, correct?
Yes, the East Division.
East Division. So we're going to get into that a little bit later on in the show. And we're also going to talk about what's happening at Lake Fort, because we always do, we call it Billy Ray's Redneck Science, and we kind of talk about the conditions, the time of year, the seasonal stuff, and kind of give a little simplification of the scientific reasons that the fish are doing what they're doing. And with what's going on right now, the wind has changed today out of the north. It's about to cool off tomorrow. It's cooling off right now. It cooled off earlier this afternoon.
57 degrees tonight, I think.
Yeah,
Or tomorrow.
it's going to get down for a low in the morning. It's going to be around something below 60, I think. So, and it's going to stay that way all week. And that is really going to affect the fish in a pretty significant way. So we're going to break that down, of course, as well.
No.
And
it's
we're
not
going
sure that's a Tuesday.
we're going to talk about how it's kind of tournament fishing season here at Lake Fork. We just had a real big one, and we got another big one coming up in a few more weeks. And so we're going to talk about tournament fishing at Lake Fork and the specifics of that in the fall. So we got a few topics for you guys coming in hot tonight, as they say. That being said, let's open up with Billy Ray's Redneck Science, Kyle. Redneck Science. It's the only kind of science we know, ain't it?
I'm out on the science.
You're out on science. You don't even redneck science. You don't know
I'm
what I'm
out.
So like we said, we're going to have several cooler nights, cooler mornings. The highs for the high temperature of the day are only going to get into the 80s, right?
Yeah, to the 80s. Friday it's going to be down in
Even
the 40s.
Even one day we have a high of 79 on Thursday. So now with what's going on the lake, you know, we've had some hotter weather here lately, and the water temps did get down to around 80 degrees when we had that 2-foot rise here a couple weeks ago. But they've been slowly climbing a little bit back up to 83, 84 degrees, give or take. But now, obviously,
Palestine yesterday was 88.
yes, well, that's really hot. And so, obviously, with the highs only being 83, 84, okay, and then the lows overnight being 60 or below, man, that is going to drastically change the water temps, because you got to think at night the water temp always cools off, and then during the day when it's 95 it heats up.
Right.
Well, now at night the water temp's going to cool off, and then during the day it's not going to climb any, because the water temp's 84 and the air temp for the high is 84 only for like an hour of the day. Water's never going to climb any. That's going to fall again and fall again. And as you can see, that creates a situation where the water temp gets dropped significantly very, very quickly. Our water
An exciting
temps,
time of the year.
our water temps will get into the 70s this week, I do believe, possibly even the mid to lower 70s. And when that happens, those fish go from summer to fall transition into fall feeding period. So the redneck science aspect is this. The water temps are falling. The acorns are about to start falling like crazy. And what that means is you tie on everything that looks like a shad that you own, and you throw every one of them till you find something they'll bite. Because these fish are going to, there's already such big schools of bait fish crammed into the mouths of and middle sections of pockets and creek arms, and you just got to get around that overwhelming amount of bait, and those bass will start teeing off on those by the end of this week. And this will go on probably off and on. This will occur until mid to late November-ish, give or take, depending on the weather patterns. So we have got an exciting month or two ahead of us where fish are really going to feed, you know, in periods. The thing about fall fishing, it's not real consistent, but when it's good, it's the best of the year. And when it's bad, it's kind of the toughest of the year, because they're only thinking about feeding. And when they're not feeding, they're just not feeding, and it gets tough. But boy, when they are feeding, they're in big numbers, and it's...
Yeah.
We've done some of this together in the past, fishing in the fall.
Yes.
And it's pretty wild, ain't it?
It can be.
Yeah, you get in the right stretches.
It can be tough too.
It can be tough. Yeah, that's the way
We've
fall
seen those
is.
days too.
That's the way fall is. It's you know, 6 one and half a dozen another, and it's either on or it's not. You know,
I've seen more shad in creeks yesterday than I've seen all year long already.
Yes. That big rain that made the water rise and made the water tips cool off really triggered all the bait and the majority of the life in the lake to get out of the deep water, to break up out of the schools they were in, and to fall and find their way to the bank and into mouths of creeks and pockets. And now it's about to get another weather pattern that's going to trigger them to start going. So it's go time, man. It's really going to be a good week to be on the water, and really a good month to be on the water. That being said, I don't think I have very much available in October at all, maybe 1 or 2 days. If you guys do want to get on a guide trip, though, we will do everything we can to either put you in my boat. I do still have a couple days left, so you can call me, you can get in my boat. If you can't, you know, at yourlakeforkguide.com, we work with a lot of really good guides, and I know some of them have available days for October. So if you're wanting to get experience and take a chance on having one of the best fishing days of your life during the fall, like happens, you need to holler at us at yourlakeforkguide.com. That's the end of Redneck Science. What you think about that?
Simple science.
It's very simple science. We can't be making things too complicated around here.
Hope the turnover doesn't stick around.
It's not. This is gonna.
It's gonna disappear.
This will push it on through.
Absolutely.
This will push it on through. That was Ryan Wilson asking a question about turnover schooling. Yes, schooling will start to occur. Schooling has already been occurring. It's just been in very brief, select windows. Now more and more schooling will occur in shallow water on those shads.
I found some fish schooling on bait yesterday in about 12 foot of water on a roadbed.
Yep, they will.
So they were starting to feed pretty good.
They will at times start schooling. I've seen them do it some on Fork. I've seen them do it some on some other lakes around the area. So somebody asked a little while ago about the Berkeley Tournament. Can I give us a heads up for the Berkeley? Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about the Berkeley Tournament. And we'll talk about it more and more as it nears, of course, like we always do with big events that happen on Lake Fork like that. But we are going to talk about tournament fishing at Lake Fork and how this is tournament fishing. That's going to be at the end. Before we get into that, I want to get into this. This is the meat and potatoes of the evening, Kyle. I know you don't want to do this because this is a hard topic for you to address because you fish with the High School Bass Association.
Absolutely.
And you don't want to cause any controversial issues for yourself, but we've talked about this a little bit at times. And before we get into this, I would like to say that I think high school bass fishing is a very, very good thing. I think college bass fishing is a very, very good thing. I think it's furthering our sport. I think it's making our young anglers way, way better quality anglers. But I think that those organizations, whatever organization it is, if you're fishing with Bassmaster or Major League Fishing or like THSBA, like you fish with, I think every one of those organizations is doing their due diligence to do the best they can to put on a fair event for everybody.
I'll agree with that.
I 100% believe that they're doing everything they can. But there's been some things that have gone on over the years since high school bass fishing's come about and gotten pretty significant in size that to me shouldn't be going on. Number one that I experience on a first-person basis that happens to me is soliciting of information. I get solicited for information every time there is a tournament on a lake near me. It doesn't even have to be Lake Fork. It might be Lake Palestine. Just had one the other day. It might be Lake Tawakoni, which I've never even fished. It might be Lake of the Pines. Any of these East Texas lakes in my region that they have a high school event on, it never fails. I will get a message from somebody asking me about information on that lake, about how to catch them, where to catch them, all that stuff. I will then go look that person up, and they are high school bass fishing. They are involved in high school bass fishing in the trail that's on that lake at the time. That is illegal. There is a no information rule in high school bass fishing. It is illegal to solicit information from others.
I'm actually looking at the rules right now. Give me a minute and I'll give you the timestamp on the information.
It used to be like a month ahead. I think they changed it to where it's only like a week ahead.
Well, I got to get into that. Just give me a minute. Sorry, guys.
It's all good. What do you know about that, about people soliciting information? Do you know anything about that?
I have people ask me for information. I'm no guru, guys, but I have people ask me for information. And
yeah, I guess we should.
And more especially like after I fished a lake and there's another tournament coming behind on that lake or something.
Yeah.
I'll people ask, hey, how'd y'all do? Where'd you fish? This, that, and the other.
And just for a little bit of context for the viewers here, like you're not really even a bass fishing guy, so to speak, at core. Like we fished together some back in the day, but you're not a hardcore bass fisherman of any kind. You actually own a center console boat. You're more of a crappie fisherman, catfishing guy.
More crappie, less catfish, but yeah, I stay on the crappie all the time.
Right, and you kind of do this high school bass fishing deal is just kind of doing it because you know these kids, you like these kids, you know their parents, and so you're helping them out. But you're not a bass fishing expert by any means.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah, and you don't even like go compete in bass fishing tournaments on your own as an adult, do you?
No,
not at all. Yeah,
no interest.
No desire to. No desire to.
No, absolutely.
So
not.
Kyle's not really. He's coming at this deal. If there was anybody that should be or would want to be able to get some information, it'd be a guy like Kyle. But the rule is you can't do that. And here's what it boils down to me in the end. And I don't want to wrap this topic up too quick because there's a lot to go into on this. But everything that we're going to talk about tonight, it goes against this. It needs to be more about the kids than it is about the boat captains. And so much of what happens in high school fishing becomes about the boat captains, or at least it seems that way from the outside looking in. I actually have captained a couple of high school tournaments as a favor for customers. Now, never on Lake Fork, of course. It's always been on lakes that I really don't know that well. But I go pre-fish it for a day or two, and then we fish a tournament. And sometimes we've done good, and sometimes we've done not so good. But it needs to be about these kids. I believe that the boat captains should not be making the decision on where and how to fish.
So, to your information, boat captains, team advisors, parents, and our participating student anglers are prohibited in hiring guides for 30 days prior. You cannot receive information from anyone the Monday through Friday prior to the tournament.
For 5 days prior.
Yes.
Okay.
But they can't hire you or anybody else for 30 days
Yeah.
prior. So I don't know if that means maybe if they hired you 32 days before, you could actually fish the tournament.
Well, no. If I had guided on that lake, I don't know what their rules are prohibiting guides from being boat captains or whatever. But it used to be if you're a guide on this lake, you can't be a captain in the tournament.
Well, see, I'm not seeing anything about that period. now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but
Is that wrong?
stay with me, dog. You're pulling me off topic here. Put that down for a second and stay with me here. So, I feel like it should be the kids making decisions in the boats, not the captains. I think that the kids should have to say, well, hey, Mr. Kyle, we want to go fish this point, this point, this point. And we want to fish this creek swing and this marina or this cove over here. Like, I think the kids should be making the decision on where to fish, and you should simply be there to run the boat for them as far as the big motor goes and to help them in that way getting around the lake safely. And yes, maybe to give them some advice, but the decision on what baits to throw, where to fish, it needs to be the kids. This is the kids' fishing tournament. This is, to me, supposed to be a test of which kids are the best fishermen that day.
True.
Not which boat captain did the most pre-fishing or knows the lake the best.
Tell you a funny story. I don't agree with 100% of everything you said.
Ever.
I pre-fished one tournament last year. We still went to regionals, and I'm not going to pre-fish this year any.
You don't pre-fish at all.
No. Too many guys go and they'll hook 20 pounds on Friday and expect to catch that same 20 pounds Saturday,
They
and
win.
it's not going to happen.
Well, there is some boat captains out there that don't know how to practice correctly. That's for sure. There's tournament fishermen that are grown men fishing against other grown men that don't know how to practice correctly.
So, back to what you said, it should all be the kids' decision. Last year I had 2 freshmen. This year I have a sophomore and a freshman that do not know these lakes. They don't know anything about them, really. Some of them we've never fished. They change them up on us. We've never fished them. So I'll tell them just last tournament, we need to fish structure, close to the shallow. I fished this lake.
Yeah.
So I'll take them in and let them get started, and then I'll let them run the trolling motor. They kind of go where they want. If I see they miss something, I will turn them back and be like, hey, y'all need to fish that, guys. There's a good opportunity right there. 9 times out of 10, they're going to do something there. But I let them make as many decisions as I can. But when they don't know a lake and they really don't know what they're supposed to be fishing, I mean, you take 2 freshmen, or you take my oldest son, your oldest son, they're a year apart. You put them in a boat, and they've never really big lake bass fished.
Which is what's going to happen here in a couple of years.
you put them on a big lake and say, okay, guys, where do you want to fish?
Right.
The response is going to be in the water. I mean, they have no idea.
Okay, but hear me out. Shouldn't a kids' high school bass fishing tournament be about those kids learning those things? And if they want to win at that tournament, they should do their homework and research seasonal patterns, lake patterns, research map study, pick out some areas. Like, they should be the ones learning all this. Not just learning, hey, Mr. Billy fishes all the time, and he said go fish that marina, so we're putting a wacky worm in that marina. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
I think that those kids should. I understand.
I encourage that today. I went and helped a kid rig up some reels and stuff and get him prepared. Last week was his first tournament, and I told him, man, you got to start digging into information. You got to start learning. You can't come into this thing never fishing and expect to do good at any level of any kind and not do your homework, just show up and fish. I mean,
and we don't have to agree on this, obviously. We don't have to agree. But I'm just saying that it should be those kids. If those kids want to bass fish and they want to compete in a bass fishing tournament and earn a scholarship that will benefit them down the road significantly, then they need to earn it by outworking the other kids that are fishing against them, not by making sure that daddy's buddy who fishes full-time is their boat captain. Because what happens, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but what happens in so many of these tournaments is you get the teams that end up doing the best consistently have a guy captaining their boat that may not be related to them in any way, may not be a daddy, a cousin, or nothing. They've got a guy that maybe he's not on the Bassmaster Elite Series, but that dude's been making a whole bunch of his living fishing tournaments on these lakes in this area for a lot of years.
Oh, there's some sticks on
what
there
we
for
call
sure.
local hammers. There are guys in this area of Texas and all across Texas really, but especially in East Texas, there are guys that make their living fishing weekend derbies. And then all of a sudden they end up being a boat captain for this team, and this team of kids does phenomenal, and now they've got a scholarship to go to school, which is a huge benefit, and it has nothing to do with how much those kids worked. It has to do with the fact that their daddy is slipping money under the table to some local hammer to captain that boat. Folks, that is happening. The only reason I know for sure that happens, it has been offered to me. I have had people offer me to pay me to captain their kids in a high school trail. And I told them absolutely not, because I don't believe that's the way this should be done at all. But that does happen, and it's really strange how many times the top winning kids ain't got their daddy in the boat captaining them.
Right.
They got some dude that ain't related to them or doesn't work at the high school. Like, it's just some guy that they know, quote unquote.
I mean, you have a lot more people reach out to you than I do, obviously. I don't really know many of the other captains from the other teams and other schools.
Hold on a second. Let me throw something in. There is going to be people that are going to reach out to somebody that they just know fishes to captain their kids because they don't have the means to captain their own kids. There is nothing wrong with that.
Right.
That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about seeing somebody thinking their local tournament hammer, full-time fishing guide like me, somebody that's on the water all the time that will give their kid an advantage in these tournaments and offering to pay this person under the table. Because that is very much against those THSBA rules.
Oh, yes.
And any other high school organization as well.
You know, and I feel like for me, I mean, you and I have been talking for a while. I mean, I get people all the time, why don't you crappie guide? Why don't you crappie guide? Well, if I crappie guide on these lakes and I'm on the water 5-6 days a week, it's still, I mean, even though you're crappie fishing, it's still a pretty unfair advantage to a lot of these other teams. If I'm on that water 6 days a week, I mean,
it can be.
I don't think that's right. Because I'm going to see the fish, I'm going to see the patterns, I'm going to see things long before anybody else does.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that.
You're going to be more in tune with the lake no matter what.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know, there probably needs to be a pretty extensive, more than 5 days, there needs to be an off-limits period. 2 or 3 weeks minimum of you can't be on this water. If you're a boat captain or a kid that's participating, you cannot be on this lake for 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time until official practice days, which are probably, I think with high school, it's just the one day before the tournament.
It is the one day before.
Yeah.
So our tournaments are Saturday. We're allowed to
practice
fish
Friday. So until Friday, boat captain or kids cannot be on the tournament waters. I think that needs to be a rule for several weeks, not just for the Monday through Thursday.
Yep.
Right? Because if I've been on Lake Fork every day, and I know guides can't captain, but say I'm not a guide and I'm just on Lake Fork every day for a month or for 5 days a week for a month, and then I don't go Monday through Thursday, it's not going to be that hard for me to relocate them on Friday.
Right.
Because I've been on the lake every day. But now you take me off that lake for 3 weeks, and I've got 1 day to find them. It's a pretty fair playing field now, bud. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to even that playing field up a whole lot.
Maybe not on that lake.
Maybe not on Lake Fork because of my extensive experience. But again, guides can't do that on the home lake anyway. But let's say my kid and your kid are in high school, and I do what I do, and they've got a tournament coming up on Lake of the Pines. So all of a sudden, man, I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna fish pines for about a month. I'm gonna fish pines for 2 or 3 weeks leading up to this event until that Monday off limits.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a huge advantage.
Oh yeah.
A huge advantage. And it's not about my kid and your kid and their abilities at that point. And that's my whole discrepancy with this is when you've got guys being paid under the table to boat captain kids because they're a local hammer or whatever, when you've got guys, even if it is the kid's dad, but he's got a fortunate work situation where he can fish the lake for weeks leading up to off limits. He can fish the lake 2, 3, 4 days a week for weeks leading up to off limits. That's not about the kids at that point. And I think we need to strive to get this thing, that's cheating. Like you're cheating. Those kids that are out there doing it on their own, and there's a 15 and 16 and 17-year-old competing against you who's been fishing your whole life. Well, they're not supposed to be competing against dad. They're supposed to be competing against dad's kid.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not anymore whenever you've got guys doing that. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I have not personally seen it with our team, and the other teams I cannot speak for.
Right.
They may have changed the rule in Louisiana.
Yeah. He said where you couldn't hire a guy 30 days out. He's saying they didn't have that rule in Louisiana. Right. And that may not be a rule in Louisiana because those are rules from a Texas high school bass association. Yes. So they may not be. They may not have the same rule. I'll tell you a story that I heard back, and this has been years ago now. It was within the first few years when high school fishing was really blowing up and getting big. Mark Davis, who's Bass Fishing Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever pick up a fishing rod, Bassmaster Elite Series, MLF, all that. His kids were fishing, and a buddy of his was boat captaining them. You know, he was their captain. And they went through, and they qualified for state championship or regional or something like that, the championship tournament, or whatever trail they were doing. The championship lake just so happened to be Mark Davis's home lake. All of a sudden, Mark Davis is their boat captain. You tell me how that's fair. Who do you think won that tournament, Kyle?
I don't think it was any of the other kids.
It was Mark Davis's boys. I mean, we do this on this channel sometimes when we think things might be a little wrong, then we call them out, and it is in an effort to push people to strive to make things better. That's all it is. I think, as I said in the beginning, that these organizations have done a fine job, number one, creating this opportunity in the first place that didn't exist when all of us were coming up. It would have been awesome if it did, and it didn't exist. It took me a long time to find my way into guiding. I was in my mid-30s before I found my way or even thought about finding my way into the fishing world. And the reason why is because growing up there, I didn't grow up at Lake Fork. I didn't grow up, at Gunnersville. I grew up around Lake Conroe. There was, other than being a meat hunting guide service for hybrids or something, crappie, where you're taking guys out and then cleaning fish every day, that was the only realistic avenue into fishing for a living. And it wasn't very good money, and I didn't want to clean fish every day. I don't clean fish now. You know that about you. You clean fish. I don't like cleaning fish. I had no clear avenue into a fishing world, so I didn't pursue it. And I never thought about pursuing it. And if I wouldn't have happened to move to this area after I got out of the Marine Corps, I would have never ended up in the fishing industry. And it's obviously something that I love to do, and it's something that I've been fortunate enough to figure out a way to make a living doing. And
I taught him how to fish, guys. That's what he's saying. He moved here. He learned how to fish from me.
Yeah, exactly. No, but you know what I mean?
Like, oh, absolutely.
So it's a great thing that these high school organizations have done that gives these kids, anywhere they are, there's a pretty clear avenue, if you love fishing, to pursue college and a career in that industry, in our industry. Yep. And it didn't used to be that way. So applause and thank you to all these organizations. So I'm not trying to call these organizations out or clown these organizations in any kind of way, but there is some issues with this information. There's some issues with boat captains taking this. It's no different than youth sports. You get youth sports out there, and you get certain sets of coaches that their whole entire self-worth, their whole entire ego depends on that kid's team winning. And it shouldn't have a damn thing to do with that coach's ego or that coach's desire to win. It should be about those kids and their desire to win and their love for the sport. And I think that's what high school bass fishing should be, is about those kids and their desire to win and their work ethic and how hard did they outwork all the other kids? Then they gave it. And in fishing, you can outwork everybody and still not win. That's the way fishing is. But it should be about the kids and the effort and execution that they put out, not a boat captains. That's the bottom line.
So let's touch on this topic. How do you feel about the captain's pot? It's a side pot. Everybody puts in $20 if the captain wants to fish it.
I think it's horrible. I think it's, and I know you participate in it.
Yep.
When I did a couple tournaments for some people, I did not participate in it because I would be sick at my stomach if I caught an 8-pounder in front of a kid and took the opportunity to take a tournament-changing fish away from him. I would be sick at my stomach about it. I don't think the boat captain should be fishing in this at all. I don't think they should pick up. I don't think a boat captain should touch
Even
a
though
rod.
half of the money goes back into the kids' scholarships. You're putting more money into the kids. So say you have 100 captains sign up for it. That's $2,000.
Yeah.
That puts another $1,000 in the kids' scholarship pot.
Well, that part of it's good. I mean, that is good.
So it has a good and a bad. Now,
It does.
if my kids are doing bad and I catch a good fish, I won't turn it in. But I fish behind my kids too. I don't fish ahead of my kids. I fish behind my kids.
And that's not the norm.
I fish behind my kids.
The guys that are boat captains.
As a matter of fact, it's hard for me not to fish behind my kids because I got one kid that bumps me off the trolling motor. What did it say his name? Cooper.
Yeah, he'll just kick you right on off trouble.
Yeah, he just kicked me right out of his
Yeah, he's a pretty aggressive kid.
Yeah.
Good and good for him. Good for him. But I don't think that's the norm. And maybe it is. I don't think that's the norm from guys I've talked to that are boat captain, side pot fishermen. Like they want to win that. You know, they want to win that. And in fact, one of these tournaments where I boat captained a kid, the first one I ever did, the guy was like all excited because they were guide customers of mine. Now, the only reason I did this one is it was on a lake that at that time I think I'd been on once in my life. Lake Ray Hubbard. At that time, I'd only been there once in my life. And it was at a time of year I didn't know anything about, so I had no knowledge advantage whatsoever. We went there and pre-fished on Friday, and we fished the tournament, and that was it.
Did you win?
No, absolutely not. Of course, I did my homework on how to fish the lake, like I would if I was going to fish a tournament. I will say this: they had the bites where we would have had a chance to win. They didn't. We only ended up weighing in. Hubbard fished tough, as Hubbard often does, and we ended up coming in, I think, 10, somewhere between 10 and 20. Something like, maybe it was 18, or I can't remember. But we only weighed in 3 fish, Kyle. We only weighed in 3 fish. And these boys had bites where they definitely, may not have won, but they could have been in a top 5 type of deal. But the guy the dad entered me into the side pot, even though I asked him, I said, no, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to fish in front of these kids. He's like, well, if you decide to fish, I'm just going to go ahead and enter this because you might win it. You never know. And blah, blah, blah. And so he actually paid my entry fee into the side pot. And that whole day, that whole morning, I didn't pick up a rod. And it had gotten so slow. It was a tough day. And I did have a big swim bait tied on. And I picked that swim bait up. And I think I made 2 or 3 casts with it. And I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I just know any minute now it's going to be my luck. I'm going to hook an 8 or 9 or who knows what pounder that do live in Hubbard on this big swim bait, and then I'm going to cost these kids this tournament. And so I made 2 or 3 casts, and I laid the rod down. I never made another cast, you know. And I don't think that boat captains fishing should be a part of it. I think that it should be those kids. Now, I think that the boat captain should be allowed to talk to and advise. Here's the deal. If you got a football game, if you got a high school football game, a coach can tell you what play to run.
Yeah.
He can advise you on how to throw a ball or catch a ball. He can't go out there and throw that ball. You know what I mean? Like, he can't go throw that ball and then be like, well, we won the side game because I threw a touchdown. Like, there's no other situation like this, you know?
No.
It just needs to be more about the kids, I feel like.
I feel like they do a pretty good job of it.
They do. I
feel like they do a real good job of it.
I think they do.
And there's no way to monitor, really. I mean, obviously, if somebody reaches out to you and you would turn them in or whatever, that's the only way. Or if somebody reached out to me and I turned them in, that'd be the only way the information would ever get back to your tournament directors or whatever.
Well, and how would you even go about dictating who can be a boat captain and who can't? Like, you know what I mean? Like how would you go? So what?
Well, they ask
what I feel
questions on
like
the application. I don't remember.
What I feel like does happen is that parents find a local tournament hammer and they pay him to be their kid's boat captain?
I have no personal knowledge of this, though. I really don't. I do know some guys here locally that did fish with kids, and I know some now that fish with kids. Now, they're not tournament fishermen, but man, they're sticks. I mean, they can put it on them. I mean, but they don't fish these lakes all the time. I mean, they're just good fishermen. Fish. Now, I do know some guys that tournament fish now that has some kids that do really well, or they did when they were in high school. They're not in high school anymore, but I mean, he's been a tournament fisherman for a long time, and he's good, you know. Yeah. Now to say that he got paid for it, I wouldn't say that. I don't know that the man would take any money for it.
The only reason I say that is because I've been offered. People have offered to pay me to do it. That's the reason.
Really? Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't personally.
So if they're offering me to do it, somebody's taking that money somewhere.
Right. Maybe so. But yeah, I don't personally know of it. But.
And how would you monitor that? That'd be the other question. Let's say that I took this guy's money and agreed to captain his kids in high school fishing. Unless you ask me that question in a lie detector, if we win or top 10 and we get drawn into the lie detector booth and I go in there and unless you ask me, have you been paid to captain these kids? How are you ever going to catch that?
Well, and I don't know how you would do that anyway, because I mean the association does, but through your sponsors and stuff, guys, and thank you for all your sponsorships to the THSBA. But there is a lot of people that pay to get their names and stuff on our shirts and stuff, and we get $100, $200, depending on where the tournament's at or whatever, for your fuel and things like that. But there's also times that the kids' parents give you $100 or whatever for fuel and stay and food or whatever the kids need. Is that any different? How is that any different? I mean, I'm just asking. I mean, I'm picking your brain.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a gray area, you know. I mean, it is, you know, like.
But they're not giving me the money saying, "Hey, this is for Kevin, my kids, just because you can fish."
Well, it depends on the amount. If it's it's got to be. So maybe there needs to be some rules in there about compensation amounts for boat captains. So you can compensate a boat captain X amount per day, per event, and that's to cover his fuel cost or to feed him or whatever, you know. I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. You know, if you've got a buddy of yours that has a boat and you don't, and your kid wants to fish and he's captaining your kid fishing, I think everybody will pretty well agree the right thing to do is to take care of that guy's expenses for that weekend.
So just to be clear, next year my son will be a freshman and Billy is going to be his boat captain, and I will not pay him.
No, he won't. I guarantee the only thing he's going to pay me is a hard time. I can guarantee you.
I guarantee it. He ain't getting paid, guys. Don't panic.
Yeah, I mean, if the boys want to do it, I know your boy likes fishing, and my oldest boy's really starting to really like fishing, and he's always kind of liked it. He's starting to really like it. So, I mean, yeah, there's a good chance that I'm going to have about 4 or 5 years of boat captaining coming up.
Oh, absolutely.
In my near future.
Absolutely.
So, now, I will tell you, my oldest son, he can't fish worth a crap, so we probably ain't going to do very good. Because I'm not going to be the guy that's going to go out there and be like, all right, there's that bed fish, and I'm up there like I am on a guide trip talking through how to catch it. No, when we sign up for that tournament, it's on you to go spot that bed fish. It's on you to catch that bed fish.
I mean, you can tell him what to look for and things like that. Absolutely.
And I can take him out and practice with him and teach him how. But when it comes tournament day, it's on you to go find them and catch them, bub.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the way, and that's the way I think it should be. And this all came about because my buddy Cody Mays captained a high school fishing team this weekend. You captained a high school fishing team this weekend. And another buddy of ours, Jerry Dean, made a post on Facebook, and his post got me really thinking about this. It said, he said that it was his son's first high school fishing tournament, and that he made every decision and picked every spot they fished and did all that himself. And I don't ever comment on anybody's stuff on Facebook, but on that I actually did. And I said, that is the way it should be done. And to me, that is the way it should be done. It should be those kids' decision on where and how they fish. Now, in practice, teach them all you want. Show them how to study. Show them how to do their homework. Show them how to do map study, how to study seasonal patterns. Encourage them to learn on their own, and then let them make the decision on game day and see how they do. The problem with that is you teach a kid to do it that way, and he's fishing against a kid that's got a guy that's on the water 200 days a year as a boat captain and is pulling up on the juice, telling his kids to right there at that tree, reel it like this. They're on a guide trip. Those kids that are getting captain like that are on a guide trip. They're not tournament fishing. They're on a guide trip.
So let's talk about this. Live sonar in high school bass tournaments. How do you feel about it with these captains, these guys that spend a lot of hours behind it?
Yeah, that's not nearly as big of an issue because the kid has to make the cast.
Supposed to, absolutely.
The guy can run the trolling motor and he can point the live sonar at the fish, but the kid's got to be the one that's aware of where that live sonar is pointing. He's got to make the cast. He's got to twitch the bait that makes the fish react to eat it. Like the kid still has to do everything that makes live sonar effective and allows you to catch fish doing it. The person holding the rod has to do that. So I don't think first time I thought
But that's no different than what you just said. You stand up there telling your kid there's a bed fish, talking him through how to get it to bite.
Yeah.
What is the difference when you have the live sonar is almost
and
at times like looking at a bed fish.
No, I think that I personally, like when my kids are doing it, they're going to be the ones running the live sonar, not me. I'm going to be down in the bottom of the boat watching them run live sonar and not saying a word unless they ask me a question, Like I'm not going to be up there controlling live sonar. Now, within the rules, the captains can run live sonar and the kid still has to make all the casts. But by the way I think it should be, by the way I think the rules should be, I think the kid should have to be the one operating the trolling motor and the live sonar.
Do you think live sonar plays an advantage?
Is it an advantage?
Do you think it plays an advantage for the kids? If it was just the kids running it, not the captains, do you think it plays that much of an advantage?
Not really. I don't think it does for adults either, honestly. I mean, you have to know how to use it. Do you know how few people are actually effective with live sonar on largemouth bass?
No.
Not that many.
Really? I know that for crappie. I've spent
different.
hours and hours and hours, and what it's done for me is just allowed me, we're before live sonar, and you just had your 2D or your down scan, you would pull up to a tree, it has a little bit of forward angle, and you say, okay, I can see a fish here.
Yeah.
But before, in crappie fishing, you would see this tree and this standing timber, and that's what you would go fish. But you wouldn't fish over here where there's nothing staged out off the tree.
Yep.
What the live sonar has done and allowed me to be able to see is, hey, they're not stacked tight. They're out here. You would have never fished there before.
I know.
Without it. So that's what it's done for me.
But it does that for everybody. And I think that's the point. It does that for everybody. It doesn't just do it for your kid or my kid. It does it for every kid that takes the time to learn how to use it. To me, it's no different than saying, well, some kids, don't know how to walk a spook, so we can't fish spooks in this tournament. Well, no, take time to learn how to walk a spook. Take time to learn how to use live sonar. If you want it to be a big advantage to you, take time to learn how to use it. Because I can assure you, you don't just put live sonar on your boat, turn it on, see the fish, throw your bait out there, see your bait, and catch them.
No, that's fact.
That's not happening in bass fishing. You've got to be very precise with your cast. It's an art learning how to even keep that fish on screen and track him and chase him. There's an art to that. Then on top of that, getting your bait in front of that fish consistently. Then on top of that, reading that fish's behavior and learning how to make him react and bite something he often doesn't want to bite. It's no different than sight fishing in that aspect where it's very difficult. It's just more challenging because the fish is a lot of times in open water and moves around a lot more than a bed fish does. So it creates even more of a challenge than bed fishing does. But as far as the aspect of getting the bait on the fish and making him bite, it's very much like bed fishing.
Yes.
Very similar to that. So no, there's nothing. I've heard the arguments about, or heard some people say that live sonar's cheating. It should be banned from tournaments. Blah blah blah. I could not disagree with that more. I guarantee you, everybody that'll tell you that live sonar should be banned from tournament bass fishing, I'll promise you this: they can't go out and catch one looking at their bait and that fish on the screen. I promise you, they can't. They can't, or they would understand how difficult it is, and then realize that it ain't really that much of an advantage unless you are outworking everybody. And at the end of the day, that's what competition is all about: seeing who can outwork and out execute the other guy. That's what every competition on any level is about, whether it's T-ball to the NFL or anywhere in between in tournament fishing. It's about who's going to work harder and who's going to out execute the guy at that game.
So
They have.
I thought I seen Cody Mays pop up and then he went away.
Sometimes they have their own conversations.
Oh, okay.
In the chats.
Cody, you still in here?
Probably.
He put a comment and then he retracted it, I think is what it said. I don't know about cheating, but you do have to.
Not every family can afford forward-facing sonar. You know what? That's true. Not every family can afford forward-facing sonar, and not every family could afford down scan and side scan when that was a thing, and not every family can afford Shimano Metaniums or Corrado DCs, and you know what I mean? Like, where are you going to...
I will say this about the live sonar. There is a guide on Palestine, and he and I have talked extensively. He's a crappie guide. That's all he does is crappie fish, and he fishes 6 days a week, and he's awesome. And I told him here a while back, I said, man, I'm going to get it. He said, why? I said, what do you mean, why? He said, well, you don't guide. He said, I see you at the boat ramp all the time. I said, yeah. He said, every time you come in, you got to limit a fish.
Yeah.
Why spend money?
Why
He said, and sometimes you're here cleaning fish before me.
Yeah.
You get off the table so I can clean my customer's fish. Why do you need it? That's a point too. I didn't have it. I don't guess I really need it.
Not everybody has to have it. Not everybody has to have, you know, for years we've all been talking about sonar and down scan and side scan and all that kind of stuff, you know, amongst the bass fishing guides on Lake Fork. And then you got Brooks Rogers, who I don't think has turned on a sonar machine in 15 years. And he guides full-time on Fork like he has for the last 30 years. And he still got his pistol grip rod, I'm pretty sure. Brooks does it old school. You know, that's one of the beautiful things about this sport is there is no one way to do it. There's never just one way to do it on any day. And it is a lot about doing things that you're confident in and that you're proficient at and all that stuff. So you don't have to have forward-facing sonar. Absolutely not.
You know, and my deal on it is I don't know that it really, I guess that was my point behind talking to that guy is if you can fish, you can fish. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you can find the fish, you can see the fish. Well, I'll tell you, whether you can make that fish bite or not.
I'll put it this way, Kyle. I'll put it this way: the guys that are winning tournaments using forward-facing sonar, right? Those guys. If you outlaw forward-facing sonar, you know who's going to win tournaments? Those same guys, because they're going to outwork and out-execute you at the other aspect of fishing. Just like they're outworking and out-executing you at forward-facing sonar, take it away from them, and they're going to outwork and out-execute you at the other aspects of fishing. The same guys are going to win.
Right.
Like, that's the bottom line.
It's because they can fish. And that was my comment.
Yes.
That was my comment.
100%. 100%. All right, let's talk about our last topic of the night. We'll get off the high school bass fishing deal. Is there cheating in high school bass fishing? Absolutely. It does happen.
I think there's cheating in all.
There's cheating in everything, though.
Yes.
There's cheating in everything. And I think our organizations that are running our high school tournaments do a very good job of giving these kids a platform and an opportunity and running as fair of an event as they can possibly run. Just tonight's topic is just food for thought. Maybe there's some ways we can make it better and more about the kids and less about the boat captains. That's all tonight's topic is about. So, that being said, we're moving on, and we are going to talk about tournament fishing at Lake Fork because it is tournament season at Lake Fork. There is Sealy's Big Bass Splash was last weekend. Just this weekend, they had a Victory Fishing Series Championship, I believe, their night fishing championship, something like that. Berkeley Tournament is coming up, third weekend in October, I believe it always is. And there will be the fall series for JC Outdoors Media, whoever else is doing that fall series like they've always done in the past. So it's kind of an odd deal because most places tournament fishing is kind of winding down. High school fishing is different because it starts in the fall when school starts up. But for most of the adult level tournaments, your normal club trails, local trails, regional trails, they all kind of, maybe they have one championship event or something in the fall. For the most part, in the fall, tournament fishing out the door, not at Lake Fork, as we've just said. So that being said, you've got to, Lake Fork's such a unique deal for tournaments anyway, with that goofy slot limit. You know, can't keep anything between 16 and 24 inches, and it changes the face of how events play out and how you go about fishing them because of that. So Berkeley coming up, how do we key in on those fish? Well, you know, one thing about the fall that's a good thing and a bad thing, I guess either way you want to term it, is everything gets real mixed up in the fall.
Yeah.
You come out of summer, fish are schooled up, and a lot of times they're schooled up. They are schooled up by species for sure, and a lot of times even within the species, they're schooled up by size. So you'll have slot fish or bigger fish over here in this group, and then on this point you'll have a school of 2-pounders. Well, that's perfect for tournament fishing. But now, when you get that water cooling down and that lake turning over and all that good stuff, and you go from that summer to fall transition period, everything runs to the bank and spreads out. And what does it do? It all mixes up. And you might catch an over in Kyle's seed and an under in my seed.
Yeah.
Like they're all. So bottom line is, as you guys go into tournament fishing at Lake Fork this fall, it's all about bites. It's all about increasing your percentage, increasing your odds by getting numbers of bites. It's the one time of year where I will go finesse more than any other time, because I am literally just trying to catch the most amount of fish that I can. Throughout the rest of the year, I forgo finesse fishing and try to specifically target bigger fish. In the fall, I will throw crankbaits this big, 1/4 ounce rattle traps, little bitty square bills. I will throw spinner baits with little willow blades 1.5 inches long. I will throw wacky worms. I will throw drop shots. As much as I talk trash about a drop shot, I will throw it in the fall.
So we're going to need that on camera, Bill.
I put it on camera here recently. I did a drop shot.
We're going to need the drop shot on camera.
So, point is, as you go into the fall, be prepared to fish shad replicating baits because they're about to start feeding, but downsize them, guys. Fish finesse. The more finesse you fish, general rule is the more bites you're going to get. That's the general rule in bass fishing from the beginning of time, and it always will be. So don't be scared to downsize and finesse fish, even a lake like Lake Fork that's known for big bass, because you will catch numbers of fish which will increase your odds of catching the right unders. And oh yeah, those overs are mixed right in with them, buddy. And so you never know when you're going to catch a 25-inch 9 or 10 pounder on a little bitty bait. I mean, it happens all the time.
Let me ask you this. How do you fish the shad spawn? Do you change your baits with shad spawn, the size of the shad?
Well, yeah. 100%. In shad spawn, I'm mimicking, yeah. If they're on threadfin, I'm throwing 4-inch swim baits. If they're on gizzard shad, I'm throwing 7 or 8-inch swim baits. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I've been told it's not effective. I just giggle and go on.
Well, a lot of times too in the shad spawn, I'll go just throw big baits.
Yeah.
Even if they're not on big shad, I'll throw big baits because there's so many bass feeding on those shad that I'm literally just trying to get the attention and target a bigger fish.
Absolutely.
Like I said, throughout the year, I will specifically target bigger fish on Lake Fork by the decisions of how and where I fish, but really specifically the decisions of what baits I throw. In the fall, once we hit that summer to fall transition and going forward into the fall, especially in October, I actually fish predominantly smaller baits and finesse baits. Just trying to get more bites because the big ones are mixed in with the little ones.
So you're not using your live sonar just to target the big ones?
No, well, not in the fall. Like they're grouped up. Like they're going to start grouping up now that we're going to get this cold front. They're going to start grouping up, and they're going to get in really.
I think they already are, man. I don't know about Fork. I know what I seen on Palestine yesterday, and I seen fish grouped up like I hadn't seen all year, and they shouldn't have been grouped up where they were grouped up. It's like they were preparing early. You know what I mean?
Well, they know. So their calendar is the daylight period, Cal. Redneck Science. Redneck Science, segment 2 for the night. Their calendar is the daylight period. They can't read the calendar on the wall. All they know is it's daylight for this long and it's daylight for this long, and they know that number is getting smaller every day right now. They are aware of that instinctually, so they know that it's coming. They know the cooler weather's coming. It's no different than in the spring. Sometimes
but the water temperature, as hot as it is, almost 90 degrees on Palestine, it really shocked me to see those fish cooled up.
I know, but the daylight, see, this is the thing. The daylight period is more important than the water temperature. It's more important. Here's the bottom line. We over-exaggerate how important water temperature is because check this out. If the water temperature at the surface is 88 degrees, what do you think the water temperature 40 foot down is?
It's quite a bit cooler.
No, it's not.
Yes.
It's maybe 5 degrees cooler.
I know when you get out
At
in
worst.
the water, it's cooler.
It may feel cooler to you. What I'm saying is, a fish is in 1 foot of water, and it's 88 degrees in 1 foot of water. In 35 foot of water, it's probably 85 degrees, 84. that fish can live his life in either of those water temps and be fine. He can live his life in 80 and he can live his life in 77. And it's not really going to be that different of a life. So we over-exaggerate how important the water temperature is. The water temperature more dictates the seasonal pattern of what time of year it is than it does the actual movement in situation for the fish, right? So I've seen a lot of times in the early spring, in February, in early March, where the water temps may still be in the upper 40s, lower 50s, and there are fish trying to go to the bank and spawn because the daylight period is growing. And if you hit a full moon in March and the water temp is 50, there'll be bedfish up there in 50 degrees spawning. The daylight period trumps the water temp. When the water temp is abnormal, extremely abnormal, that daylight period will eventually trump it and key those fish to move into the next season, even if the water temp isn't right yet. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And that's what I've found over the years.
See, it's something I've seen totally different crappie fishing. I think the water temperature has a lot more to do with.
Well, that's why you fish for crappie. They're a lot dumber than bass.
Damn it. He can't catch them, guys, is what he's saying. He can't catch them.
I don't know if I can or I can't. I ain't never really tried very much, to be honest with you.
Hey, we're going to find out. We were talking earlier today after lunch, putting together like a poor boy crappie tournament, making some of these bass guys get in the boat with some of us poor guys.
Wait a minute, I got to do this?
Oh, yeah.
No, whoa. We did not discuss
that. You're crappie fishing with me.
Earlier, there was not one mention of me crappie fishing.
Yes, with me.
Oh, my God.
It's going to be our own tournament. We got to get Cody in. I don't think he can catch a crappie either.
Cody actually does crappie fish a little bit.
Does he?
I don't know he catches any, but he crappie fishes a little bit.
Is he still in here? He never commented back to us.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
I think he's
He usually.
Did we make him mad?
Who cares? Who cares?
Larger bait's been working better for me recently. The smaller.
That's a lot of donkey rigs. Yo-yo. Man, this guy fishes some weird stuff. Turn on the flasher, the old school flasher. There you go. There you go.
Yo-yos are illegal in Texas, by the way. I'm
Yes.
throw that out there. Don't use it.
Yes, they are.
We're not going to talk about how I know this information. I'm just telling you they're illegal.
100%. It's funny when you go to Toledo Bend because half the lakes in Louisiana, half the lakes in Texas. And when I first started going to Toledo Bend, we'd be on the Texas side fishing, you just normal whatever. Then we went over and run over fish the Louisiana side, and them yo-yos look like a cross sticking out of the water. And I'm over there fishing. I'm like, man, there's some religious folks around here. They planting crosses. Look how many crosses are in this cove. Like, did somebody die here? You know, like, what happened? Like, do we need to leave? Are we about to be the next victim? Is this like Bermuda Triangle of Toledo Bend? What is going on? There's crosses all over the water. And this guy goes, no, man, those are yo-yos. And I was like, what in the hell is a yo-yo? And he explains it to me. It's like a pressure deal, and when the fish bites it, it sets the hook on them.
It's just a spring-loaded retractable cable. You just pull it down in the water and set it and put your baits on it. When the fish hit it, sometimes you can put more hooks, sometimes one, and it reels them up for you.
So he goes, keep watching. Wait till one of them jokers goes off. I was like, really? I go, they whip it pretty. He goes, yeah, dude, it's violent.
Yeah, it'll set the hook for you.
It didn't ever happen that day, but one of them days we were there for 3 or 4 days. One of them days when them things went off and I like to fell out the boat, it scared me to death.
Come on.
That sucker snaps and it is loud and violent when it goes off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it cracks the whip on them. It's interesting. Them Louisiana boys always keep things interesting. I don't even know what Ryan Wilson's saying anymore. I think maybe he's been doing some of this. Cheers, y'all.
I'm drinking water.
Yeah, you are drinking water.
Smart water.
I mean, I'm drinking tea, but it's brown. That's brown water.
That's
it's
right.
tea.
Smart water.
Well, you're living
It
proof.
says it on the bottle.
Living proof that that's false advertising right there. Kyle Wiggins drinking smart water. I think that's going to do it for us. Wiggins, did you have fun doing the podcast?
Oh, yeah.
You know what?
So to get back to talking about this tournament.
Hold on a minute. I was really concerned about bringing you on here. I was concerned about bringing you on because, you know, I've known you for a long time, and I know some of the things you talk about, some of the things you say
I'm unfiltered normally.
can be real controversial. So when we came on here, I was like, hey, now you can't just say just anything. We are live. And to be honest with you, I was really surprised how tame you kept it tonight. I really thought you was going to be a little more on the edge of things.
I'm pretty laid back these days.
Should we tell the story about when you worked for a company, and I think it was GE took it over, maybe? Some big national corporation took over a company you worked for in the oil field back in the day, and they held some meeting, and I think you walked out.
Okay, well, all right, I'll tell you. So they had me sitting on a sales meeting trying to get us to purchase a product, and I was one of the only field hands that could run the product. So they had me sitting on a meeting, and basically at the end of it, their presentation, they asked me what I thought, and I just calmly said I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't buy from them. Well, they kept pushing me for the reasons why, and it was in front of the salespeople. And you got to understand, these are CEOs, these are engineers, these are people way high up. And basically, I told them, I said, well, I'll just tell you what I said.
Well, can you?
I can.
Okay, go ahead.
Without, I'm going to keep it PG, though.
You're not going to use the same language, I bet.
No.
Okay,
No.
good. Okay.
So basically, I said, this guy come in here and give you a presentation. He can't be over 23 years old. He's got skinny jeans and loafers on. Who in the hell are you going to call at 3 o'clock in the morning when you have trouble? Because he has no clue. I'm not going to buy something from somebody that don't know what the hell they're talking about. He's been trained to sell it,
Yeah.
but he can't run it.
Yeah.
So that's not... So there's some on here that know me.
But that's
Y'all
not how
know
you
that's
said
not
it.
what was said.
But it's not how the verbiage was. It's not how the verbiage was. That's actually not the story I was thinking of. I was thinking of a story where, I think you told me this, they came in and did the corporate entity took over your company you were working for, which was the East Texas company, and based out of Tyler. And I think they came in and were doing like HR type meetings where they're like sexual harassment trainings and equal opportunity this. And I believe that you got up in the middle of the meeting and uttered something about liberal nonsense and hypersensitive this and that. And didn't you do that?
I actually called the HR lady, the head HR lady of Weatherford International, see you next Tuesday, and told her she wasn't going to come in from Houston and tell me how to do my damn job because her job didn't generate any revenue, and my tickets were over $5 million a year, and she wasn't going to come in and tell me how to do it. It's basically the gist of the conversation. I did leave.
They tried to take a rodeo hand, oil field hand, East Texas redneck, and put him through some corporate HR training, and to say the least, it did not go well.
No. Also, after that, I was unemployed for months.
Yeah.
We're going to put that out there. They didn't keep me.
That corporate entity was like, that's a little too much redneck for us.
I'm not corporate material.
Me neither, brother. I think that is a perfect place in it. You're going to come back to the podcast again?
Yeah.
Come back again. We'll talk more about the crappie tournament stuff. We'll talk about some other stuff next week as well. We've got to go over and recap the Angler of the Year from Bassmaster, which, by the way, forecasted it before the year even started, called the Angler of the Year. Got that one, nailed it right on the head. So, pat on the back to me. If you're wondering where Chris is, man, Chris is just busy. So Chris got a promotion at his work a while back, and he was still doing the podcast with us for a while. And I'm not real sure that Chris is going to be able to come back anymore, maybe ever, or very rarely, if so. So what we're going to do is just try to get more new guests, like Kyle, to come in. And Kyle lives right down the road, so it's easy for me and him. So you'll probably see him quite a bit. And I'm sure at times we may get some other fishing guys in here, some tournament guys in here when they're in town. But we'll just go a little different direction. We'll just have sit-in guests when we can, and when we can't, we'll have call-in guests, and we'll just move forward and kind of resume doing the podcast. It's been a while since we've done these, and we need to get them fired back up and get them going again.
What about the Laney segment? You can add her now?
Laney segment? The princess? Ask Princess in? Maybe next week. We've kind of gone over our normal allotted time for this week, so we may have to work her in next week too. She did say before we started, let me know. Let me know if you need to.
I heard it.
Ask her anything. We call her segment Ask Her Anything. So
yeah. I heard it.
She's done it before. She'll do it again. So hey man, thank you guys for watching as always, and we'll see you next time right here on your Lake Fork Guide.